I told you that Dark Souls is cozy? Everyone has told you it's challenging, requiring you to be careful and certainly not carefree, else you'll come to a cruel end. But I bet no one has told you it's cozy. Everyone loves a good cozy game. A little bit of power wash simulator here, a bit of moonlighter there. It's a genre that's popped off in the past few years and has reached everyone from the hardcore gaming space to the most casual. It's good stuff. But as I play through these more casual approaches to our favorite hobby, I notice something familiar. The cozy feelings that a cozy game evokes are ones that I've felt before while playing all sorts of games. Games like Dark Souls. And not just Dark Souls, but games from Alan Wake to Chia to Twisted Metal and everything in between. Which leads me to wonder, can we consider every game to be cozy? When you saw this video's title, your brain surely went to something like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley. Games that are, by most considerations, part of the cozy game genre due to their low-stress gameplay loops and lack of demanding input methods. Titles that anyone can kick back and play for a relaxing time. But what about a game like Amnesia, Alien Isolation, or Death Stranding? Can these games evoke a feeling of cozy similar to that of unpacking? I'd argue yes. The warm, homey feeling you get when playing a game like Minecraft applies to games of all sorts. That this coziness is more than a result of genre, it's a foundation of good game design. If you're anything like me, the mere thought of playing a new game is thrilling, let alone the feeling of actually playing it. Like the excitement of anticipating a present on Christmas morning. That final sleep on Christmas Eve takes forever when you're a kid. Not unlike a game finally arriving after years of waiting. After you've been fantasizing about its story, characters, and mechanics. Fantasizing about its potential. Enveloping those childhood memories is a sense of warmth and nostalgia that the cozy game genre tries to emulate. A feeling that often comes from embracing simplicity, from removing stress or responsibility or the fear of failure. A feeling of safety or coziness. GamesIndustry.biz interviewed a few cozy game developers on what makes these titles tick. These interviewees stated that the cozy game genre evokes its desired feelings in a few ways. For example, a co-founder of the game studio Albloon, Lucy Lequi, believes that non-violence is one of the core factors in building a cozy game. Albloon's other co-founder, Alexandre Strukov, claims that promoting relaxation is key. Robert Tatnell, the sole developer of Hako Life, argues that coziness is the understanding that humans are social creatures, but also recognizes that being social can be exhausting. His approach is to remove that exhausting factor through games, allowing us to satisfy our communication needs through friendly NPCs. Essentially, these developers are claiming that cozy games should include non-violent repetitive tasks such as farming, exploring, socializing, and puzzle solving. Experiences with gameplay loops that lull you into a sense of calm, combined with characters that are welcoming and friendly. And their descriptions of these games are all true. Games like Hako Life or Harvest Moon do make me feel all nice and warm inside, largely because of the reasons they stated. But these restrictions on what makes a game cozy present a limited way of viewing games. Who's to say that other games that are violent or that don't have characters that are welcoming and friendly can't evoke a cozy feeling? Because I'm definitely cozy playing Outlast or Alan Wake 2 just as I would be playing The Sims. This is a real feeling of mine, and this video looks to define that. To me, it doesn't matter if your game is difficult, easy, fun, platformer, or story-based. I can be beating up goons as Spider-Man or hunting down psychos in Alan Wake and feel that same Christmas morning snugness that I might feel while playing Stardew Valley. It's because there's a coziness in a game's potential. And that potential often capitalizes on what these three developers described. When thinking about playing a future game, I'm wondering all sorts of things. Will I explore an exciting alien planet unlike anything I've dared to imagine, like in Pikmin? Will I meet a character as memorable as Mimir from God of War?
Brother, somewhere out there's a riddle you'd enjoy, and I'm going to find it.
Do not.
Will the game feature a cooking mechanic to rival Sea of Stars, or can it match Starfield's distinctive puzzle solving? The cozy possibilities are endless, and my imagination runs rampant. Coziness comes from that period before your brain is loaded with the game's concepts, before understanding starts to take over your wonder. It continues through a game's peak highs and frustrating lows as you engage with its characters and mechanics. To me, games of all genres can provide that feeling in a multitude of ways, and sometimes as early as their introductions. The Final Fantasy franchise is cozy due to its characters and often humble, relatable beginnings. For example, Final Fantasy III's group of 4 exploring a cave may trigger nostalgic memories with your own friends. Or consider the series spin-off Kingdom Hearts, as you hang out at the beach with nary a responsibility. Both of these games do a good job invoking any childhood experiences, but they're also smarter than that. They provide extra context that in-game characters don't have. That this cozy space they're in is about to change forever. The dissonance between a cozy space and the dark times that one of these games hints at creates a stronger emotional tie for the player. It tells us that everything here is fleeting, and to value what's here while we're in it. In Kingdom Hearts' case, the game's foreboding opening and its subsequent moments of darkness contribute to that dissonance. While Sora doesn't know that his comfortable life is about to change forever, you do, and you empathize with him, imagining the possibilities if that happened in your own life. With Final Fantasy III, it's the game's opening text crawl that hints at something greater, that our 4 friends may be having a grand old time exploring, but nothing here is going to last. To make a more relatable comparison, your bed is coziest when you need to wake up. The moment you stand up, you're giving up warmth, comfort, and safety. You're valuing your comfort most at the cusp of its absence. Dark Souls appears anything but cozy, at least at first, with your character locked away in a prison. There you wait until a speechless knight drops a key to your freedom. Leaving you with a myriad of questions, you break out and desperately fight your way through this institution. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, you're soon faced with an impossible boss. You wail away at it, feeling hopeless as your attacks chip away its health so little. I died the first time I fought this boss, and many times afterwards. Yet, knowing that FromSoftware made this challenge seem impossible on purpose, that there's surely a way to defeat this towering beast, I felt invigorated, not exhausted, as I imagined how to beat this thing. FromSoftware trusted that I as the player could handle this, which carried me through my many attempts. Otherwise, why would they have put a boss this early in the game in the first place? It's not here by mistake. All of this in mind, I started exploring, and found that if you go around a back way past the boss, you can find a new weapon and even get the drop on it, starting the fight with some extra damage and a confidence boost that can carry you to victory. Finally defeating this boss, and knowing that FromSoftware rewarded my curiosity with a starting advantage, made me feel safe. That I was able to carve out my own place in this oppressive world felt cozy. Overcoming a seemingly massive challenge only to feel safe afterward provides a dissonance in gameplay rather than story, but one that's still really effective in making you feel cozy. As if to reinforce this, each death whisked me back to a bonfire, the epitome of cozy, a place of refuge amidst the chaos and a space to reflect on my mistakes. I can remain here as long as I'd like, pondering and planning my next steps. Finally, defeating the boss rewards me with humanity, an item that restores my character's ghoulish state into one more familiar, a welcome sign in an otherwise unwelcome world. Dark Souls is a game that encourages you to slow down and pay attention, rather than rushing through each space. It's filled with gorgeous vistas filtered through a dreamlike palette, and that haziness paired with moments of silence and exploration results in a cozy experience unlike anything else. It's littered with friendly characters, hints and notes left from other players all looking out for each other, shortcuts, and other smaller touches that show FromSoftware is on your side here. Sure, there are enemies and trickery, but amongst all that deception is a sense of positivity and coziness. The dissonance between the positive and negative feelings are what contributes to this coziness. In their paper Towards the Aesthetics of Cozy Video Games, scholars Agata Waskowitz and Martina Bakun classified dissonance as one of 3 visual relationships that can contribute to making a game cozy. The two argue that simple, welcoming visuals contrasted with a game's heavy themes play an important role in establishing cozy. Pikmin does a good job of this with its colorful, nature-laden planet contrasting against the horror and death that make up its ecosystem. The author's second proposed relationship is situational. Even if the majority of a game isn't traditionally cozy or soft, a game's having cozy-like sections is vital to its feeling of coziness. They call this peace amidst chaos, and the two even reference fireplaces as a common way to showcase this relationship, a safe space amongst the horrors of the world. If we take something like Kingdom Hearts, chaos is a very fitting word for that mess, but the game exudes coziness. Familiar Disney characters and hub areas in each world are great examples of that. Spaces that are welcoming and friendly with characters that stand by and lift you up. They stand as a safe space against the darkness you're fighting the rest of the game. Finally, Waskowitz and Bakun describe coherent as their third relationship. That a game's message and aesthetic must be complementary. It must be largely free of threatening situations and emphasize relaxation. To be real, few games are entirely free of threatening situations, even those games that many would define as cozy. Stardew Valley has dark cave sections where you're fighting for your life. Animal Crossing will randomly drop bees onto your character, and places you in mountains of debt. Sure, you can pay off that debt as you please, but it's a debt that's still looming over your entire experience. Even something like unpacking hints at more uncomfortable feelings, such as when you notice the main character broke up with their significant other and moved home. However, all of these games ultimately point towards something cozy, living a fulfilling life, meeting friends, and creating a welcoming space for ourselves. If, at some point, a game's message and its visual style prompt a cozy feeling, we can consider that game cozy, even if there are moments without cozy. Assuming that a game's introduction showcases at least one of these relationships, we can call its intro cozy at the very least. But this answer isn't satisfying enough. What about playing past the intro? I want to define the coziness felt when playing almost any game at almost any point. To satisfy that desire, I need to frame my relationship with games in the lens of why we play in the first place. Everyone has their own reasons to play. Some prefer the challenge that comes with play. Others like being an active participant in stories as they play out. Or maybe you just enjoy the sense of community that many games provide nowadays. Game designers Katie Salen and Eric Zimmerman attempt to define the term meaningful play in their 2003 book, Rules of Play, and they present two ways of looking at it. One way is more literal, in that meaningful play is the process by which a player takes action within the design system of a game and the system responds to that action. Or the fact that a player can interact with a design system is naturally meaningful. Their second way of looking at things is a bit more broad and takes into account player perspective. It states that meaningful play is what occurs when the relationships between actions and outcomes in a game are both discernible and integrated into the larger context of the game. That a player's inputs are not only meaningful by themselves, but noticeably meaningful to the virtual world in which they're performed. This second definition factors in actions that weren't necessarily intended by a game's designer, ones that came about as a result of players interacting with their systems. The first definition refers to more predictable input methods. For example, Placing a door in Minecraft. Generally, players place a door to prevent baddies from breaking in. By the author's first definition, a player placing that door to keep themselves safe is meaningful because the designers meant it that way. But if a player builds a hut and uses that door as a ceiling or a window, what does this mean for the game at large? Practically, it means that a door is now a window. But for the player, it might mean a way to differentiate their build from another, or they just thought it looked cool. It's a way of interacting with the game's design systems that the developers didn't necessarily intend. It's the player creating a meaningful experience in their own way. When viewed together, these definitions factor in both the developer-intended reasons to play a game and the player's made-up ones. If there was one goal of game design, Salen and Zimmerman claim it is to achieve meaningful play. Every game is made up, but to make up something a player can derive meaning from is an incredible achievement, whether that meaning is intended or not. Of course, that meaning can vary. The color of my Minecraft house foundation has much less meaning to me than what happens to Garrus in Mass Effect, but I care enough about both to keep playing anyways. Otherwise, I would just play a different game. Yet, how I perceive a game's meaning is constantly in flux based on all sorts of factors, such as mood. If I'm playing while sleep deprived, I might just want Garrus to shut up and move on with the story.
Have you got a minute?
Can it wait for a bit? I'm in the middle of some calibrations.
But when I'm well rested, I'll gladly sit through every conversation option with him. All that said, if nothing else, my personal form of meaningful play comes from one thing: what a game can teach me. Be it philosophically, a life lesson, or pondering how developers focus their efforts to achieve a certain goal, I'm always interested in pulling something from a play experience. But just as my engagement with a game's intended meaning can vary, what I pull from that game does as well. Mass Effect taught me that hating others based on their race was a thing when I was in middle school. Yes, I was a sheltered kid, and should I have been playing Mass Effect in middle school? That's up for debate, but no one can say I didn't learn from it. Dark Souls taught me that focused, meaningful repetition leads to success via its meticulously designed enemies and combat. Pikmin taught me to let go through its forced acceptance of death. Were these games trying to teach me these things? In some cases, sure. I trusted that FromSoftware was being deliberate with this intro boss, and because I was open to establishing that trust, I was able to enjoy one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. Yet, FromSoftware designed Dark Souls with establishing that trust in mind. It was an intended design decision. In other ways, meanings that I pulled from that game were derived entirely from me and my experiences, and are meanings that another player may or may not glean from the same experience. When I can focus on a game without distraction and experience whatever that team wanted me to experience, no matter its genre or content, I feel at peace. It's how I've always been. And if I can't learn something from a game, at the very least, I'm playing to feel something. A sense of competition, to feel sad or happy, to want to scream if a Mass Effect character dies, or to feel immense joy when completing a difficult Mario level. Sitting down to anticipate those feelings from a game brings me the ultimate cozy feeling. Of course, this coziness isn't at the expense of other emotions like fear or excitement, but it's in addition to them, and provides an overall meaning to why I play. Daniel Cook, the chief creative officer at Spry Fox, creates what many might consider to be cozy games. He also writes a gem of a game design blog called Lost Garden. Within that blog, Cook and his colleagues describe their approach to designing cozy games with meaningful gameplay. As you can imagine, this blog post discusses cozy design at length, but I want to highlight two philosophies that they mention. One, that we as players see play as a form of safe practice. That through play, we can experiment or participate in actions that, for whatever reason, may be unattainable or even impossible in the real world. In games, we can participate in these activities without negative consequences. I can play Flight Sim without spending thousands of hours and dollars learning to fly, or I can be Spider-Man without being bit by a radioactive spider. And 2. Cook and his team see games as a means of satisfying unmet needs. In the real world, we have various motivations, such as needing to find food when we're hungry. That hunger motivates us to find food. It is a need that we need to survive. Cook and team propose that players seek to fulfill the emotional and psychological equivalent of these real-life needs within games, and that each game genre comes with its own set of motivations to push us towards that fulfillment. Fear in a horror game motivates us to find safety. Intrigue and mystery motivate us to continue a game's story. A feeling of achievement and progression motivate us to perform well in gameplay-centric games. The writings continue, calling attention to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If a game presents naturally human needs such as hunger, thirst, or the desire for safety, players will surely focus on that before anything else. That focus is partly due to human psychology and partly because a game's mechanics might require that, but part of what makes those mechanics so engaging in the first place is that they're based on our real-life needs. Think about it. You can't focus on building a massive tower in Minecraft if your hunger meter is constantly draining. Before you can focus on that tower, you need to satisfy your base needs. So instead, you'll start building a farm and creating a sustainable food source. Then, once that need is satisfied, you can focus on your less vital needs, such as building an extravagant home base. Just like in the real world, when our basic needs are satisfied in games, we can focus on our higher order needs: mastery, self-reflection, and connectedness. Traits that exist beyond our survival needs, and ones that make us better people on a spiritual or human level. It's the same reason I know my dog is happy and her needs are met, because she focuses on her higher order need: zoomies. Cook and team stress that cozy games place a larger focus on those higher order needs and ignore the base survival ones. But what if I find my comfort in my attempts at satisfying my base needs? That learning how to beat the alien isolation AI to survive provides a sense of mastery and belonging. That choosing to fully engage with something like Mass Effect does cause me to have some self-reflection and make me feel more connected to other people. The very act of me sitting down to play a video game in the first place is only possible due to me fulfilling my base needs in real life, so I can focus on fulfilling my higher order needs through gaming. It's here that I refer us back to Waskowitz and Bakun, and their situational relationship with designing a cozy game. Remember, they state that situational refers to scenes or locations that have cozy elements, even if the rest of a game may not suit that aesthetic. These scenes are considered the peace amidst the chaos that is the rest of the game. But how do developers make that peace amidst chaos actually feel peaceful? Generally, the foundations of peace are built during a game's introduction, which we've already established is usually a game's most cozy. There's a reason most starting areas and worlds are full of bright colors, sunlight, and an overall welcoming vibe, to provide a cozy foundation that later sections can pull from. Kingdom Hearts Beach introduces save points and its focus on friendship. Mass Effect Citadel offers strong writing and a believable world with characters worth fighting for. Sonic's Green Hill establishes its checkpoints, bonus stages, and power-ups. And staying in line with Cook and team's viewing of play as a form of safe practice, a game's opening areas are often a safe space to experiment and get comfortable before tragedy strikes the world. Skyward Sword and Super Mario Galaxy are great examples of this. Both provide more than enough time to get used to their respective mechanics in a peaceful version of the game's later areas. Skyward Sword's Skyloft is a multi-hour section that teaches you how to fight and how to fly, while Mario Galaxy features a lone tutorial planet for adjusting to its gravity and collection mechanics. These moments are not peace amidst chaos, rather peace before chaos. The peace amidst chaos that our authors refer to is often established during these early moments, and carry the cozy throughout the rest of the game. Alan Wake's establishing light as a safe space, holding quiet conversations with Liara or Rex in Mass Effect in between big battles, friends that you've had since the journey's beginning, hanging out with the cute little rock guys in Kenna Bridge of Spirits after a fight, rest spots in Sea of Stars to catch up with your party, Lambda catches in Half-Life 2 for a quick breather and some pickups. Hell, eliminating the final enemy in a Doom Eternal arena and basking in the peace for a second or two. These quieter moments are a vital part of keeping us engaged in a game. They give us time to contemplate what just happened, to catch up with characters and build relationships, and allow us to appreciate the world we're experiencing. They replicate the more human moments in our everyday lives, hanging out with a friend or reflecting on a recent interaction. They give meaning to our play and make us feel cozy. My personal peace amidst chaos is found in what a game is trying to teach me. Mechanically or philosophically, approaching a game this way can challenge me to achieve what I've never done before, or experience a story unlike anything else. While sure, I'm not actually learning how to sword fight, the benefits that a simulation applies are enough for me to generate positive feelings. That of safety because I'm learning a skill in a safe environment, and that of self-improvement, as it feels like I'm actually learning something. It also satisfies me knowing that when I engage in meaningful play, my knowledge of games becomes better, which ideally contributes to better content for you guys. Enter Alien Isolation. Many herald this game as one of the scariest out there, and I'm inclined to agree. The way that Alien AI stalks you through the Sevastopol space station, creeping through its many vents and adapting to your playstyle is arguably too much for some players. The alien simply feels too real. Yet, amidst these bouts of horror are not so subtle bouts of cozy. I can point out the obvious dissonance in that hiding from the alien in the station's various lockers or escaping it into the next area brings with a sense of coziness and respite. Like the safety you felt as a kid when hiding under the blanket. I feel that while concealed away in a vent or under a desk in Alien. It's fun thinking that I can never be caught under here. It's a cozy feeling. But what's especially cozy here is something that comes from many great horror games.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!
To truly scare someone, a developer needs to establish a sense of place, a sense of atmosphere, a way to absorb the player into your world and force them to experience that fear. If they're not engaged in your world, how can you expect them to feel anything, let alone fear? Resident Evil Remake truly excels in this case. Spencer Mansion is built mostly like an actual mansion. You're roaming around and learning its history, picking up bits of lore, and imagining what it must have been like to live here. The game's attention to detail creates a true sense of immersion, and feelings of tragedy envelop you as you unravel the mansion's mysteries. And by the time a scare actually happens, you're so wrapped up in the experience that the tension feels real. Alien Isolation developers Creative Assembly understood this more than most. Before you arrived, the Sevastopol had real people living and working there. You're reading their communications, not only about their job and coworkers, but about their loved ones. You're relating to them, putting yourself in their shoes. The game's attention to detail creates a true sense of immersion, and feelings of tragedy envelop you as you unravel the station's mysteries. Then, when the alien finally appears, you're so wrapped up in the experience that the tension feels real. That sense of being, of existing in another place and letting its atmosphere wash over you, that's coziness. It's fear, it's curiosity, it's confusion, it's excitement, but it's also cozy. That's why you feel a sense of safety when you finally escape the alien. It's why you feel relief in one of the game's save rooms as you sit there and plan out your next steps, because you're emotionally invested in the world and its characters and want to survive the experience to see more. There's even a weird sense of familiarity and coziness in the station's androids, at least at first. Made to represent real humans, these wannabe living beings are designed by Seegson Corporation and look just enough like humans to exist in a sort of uncanny valley with them. So much so that they evoke a feeling of coziness. A coziness you'd feel if you finally found another friendly human being while you were trapped alone in space. However, the androids eventually turn on you, and most sense of coziness is lost. But even as that's happening, I'd argue these bots still give off a weird sort of dark coziness, a growing subgenre of cozy game detailed in an interview with Polygon. Here, Polygon discusses dark coziness with self-described cozy game expert Cozy K. The article specifically mentions the game Dredge, and how there's a dark mystery underlying its welcome and wholesome elements, just like how there's a dark sense of eeriness underlying the android's welcome and wholesome elements. In a way, their description of a dark coziness is almost the opposite of what I'm describing in this video, as they're talking about a game that evokes the repetitive, calm tasks that often come with cozy games, but with a dark underlying theme. While I'm talking about a game that's dark first, but has cozy elements laid throughout. They're both effective in their own way. The article is an intriguing read, and its descriptions certainly fit games like Alien Isolation and others I've discussed. But above everything I just talked about, Alien has a cozy secret weapon in its environmental design. The Alien movies are classics that so many are nostalgic for, myself included. They represent that contrasting retro-future aesthetic harnessed by Atari and early Apple, or movies like RoboCop and Blade Runner. It's a style made up of bulky CRT monitors and a function-over-form approach to tech, all with a gross sheen of green for a screen. For a universe taking place in the 2100s, yet made in 1979, it's clearly the past's take on a future humanity. We're well past that technology even now, but the environment bestows upon us a simpler vision for the future, one where technology serves us rather than the other way around. It's a sense of nostalgic coziness rivaled only by Fallout. All this to say, what's cozy about a game may not be immediately apparent, but if you search for it, I guarantee you can find something. The coziest space will not feel cozy if a player enters it with pressing external needs. For example, a violently angry teen may find a little village full of happy birds infuriating, since it does nothing for their need to exert force. This quote is from Cook's blog on coziness, specifically the section on coziness being player dependent. In it, his team notes that cozy design is less about forcing a cozy state on the player and more about attempting to ease these feelings out as best as possible through authentically cozy game design. A campfire, a coffee shop, a beach, bright colors, friendly patrons, nostalgic, accurate throwbacks to simpler times. Things that make us feel cozy in the real world are likely to make us feel cozy in a digital one. While it's impossible to replicate the sense and actual touches of these cozy elements at our current time, a visual, virtual representation is still impactful. It's why all those videos of a virtual fireplace are so popular. Our desire to achieve that feeling of cozy, realized or not, can fuel us to play games in a certain way. There's no in-game reason to build anything other than a small shack in Minecraft. It's a perfectly serviceable space to stay safe from monsters, cook some food, and create your tools. But you might build a little reading nook on a mountaintop while basking in the coziness of your own little gaming corner, simply because you know you'd enjoy that in the real world. But not everyone will want to do this. Some people will be okay with a small shack because they want to go spelunking or take down the Ender Dragon, and maybe that's what brings them a cozy feeling. I've experienced this alternate perspective on games firsthand, at least a little bit. Remember the game Habbo, the somewhat controversial social platform for hanging out and making friends? I had the overwhelming urge to revisit that game for the first time in over a decade while writing this script. Trying to make friends and conversation, I mentioned that I was writing about cozy games and asked people what they feel when they first start a game. Some responded that they don't think much about that sort of thing. Others said they feel excitement or worry when starting a game, hoping that what they've anticipated for so long lives up to their expectations. But Many of the responses were, why? Why would you write about something like feeling cozy when playing a video game? To me, this is a natural thing to be curious about, but to others, it very well might not be the case. Granted, this isn't a definitive study of those who may approach games differently, but it does demonstrate that there are multiple approaches to play outside of my own.
But all of this talk about cozy games begs an obvious question. When is a game not cozy? Well, when external factors come into play.
Cook and team have a long list of game design factors that might negate coziness, but the one that really speaks to me is extrinsic reward and motivation. Extrinsic motivation is a fairly common term in psychology, meaning that a person might pursue a task not for the satisfaction of completing it, but for the external factors that come alongside it. A person might stick with a job they hate to achieve wealth, or hang out with people they don't like to feel wanted. Extrinsic isn't an inherently negative form of motivation in its own way. It can lead to a lot of positive things like a better salary or a friend group that you do enjoy being around eventually. But its implementation in games often feels slimy and forced. A prime example of this extrinsic misuse in gaming is the Battle Pass. If you play any online game in the modern era, you've likely been privy to this controversial implementation. If you're unfamiliar, a Battle Pass is essentially a money-driven way to add meaning to an online game. Games have always rewarded you with additional abilities, weapons, skins, and more through their gameplay. These rewards are a core way to keep players engaged throughout a game's runtime, or may exist as a way to acknowledge a cool gameplay feat, such as the big head mode in Ratchet & Clank that you can get after achieving a bunch of skill points. A welcome reward, in my opinion, as they create a form of intrinsic motivation. They're rewards that change up the gameplay in a fun way and add replay value, but aren't necessary to experience the game in full. You're going for them because you want to. But what happens when you've unlocked everything in a game? Well, usually you reminisce on the experience and move on to another game. But that's not a very profitable form of game design, is it? Nowadays, in many online games, rewards aren't achieved through cool feats, but through paying for them ahead of time. Typically, matches give you player experience and battle experience. Player experience contributes to your player level, which is often pretty meaningless and doesn't usually unlock abilities, weapons, or skins like you might think. Unlocking those things comes through Battle Pass XP. Every time you get enough Battle Pass XP to level up a Battle Pass level, you unlock a Battle Pass point, which unlocks additional abilities, weapons, and skins. Oh wait, most games can't actually offer abilities and weapons because that would throw off gameplay balance. So really, you just get skins and items that don't impact the play experience. That's fine, I guess, as long as the core gameplay experience is good in its own right. Skins are cool, and once you complete the Battle Pass, you can then just focus on the gameplay, right? At least, you can until the next Battle Pass comes out. And you only get the best skins if you buy the premium version of a Battle Pass. Buying premium isn't necessary, of course, but the game will constantly remind you what a mistake it is to only play at the free tier. And hey, skins don't affect gameplay, so at least I won't be bothered by those who do spend if I choose not to buy the premium pass. And developers can make money and keep coming up with cool skin ideas to implement. Hopefully nothing too crazy that's distracting and ruins the experience. I think that we can all agree these are decidedly uncozy. They turn wanting to play a game into having to play a game. You're not playing to get better or to unlock a new weapon or ability to surprise your friends with or to find a new secret on that one map. Now you're playing for skins, for daily or weekly challenges that will never appear again. Access to these things that you paid for ahead of time. Because if you don't max out your Battle Pass before it expires, you're losing access to content that you had to pay up front for. Extrinsic motivation. Meaningless play. You know, part of why I find something as scary as Alien Isolation cozy might simply be because there's not a Battle Pass hanging over me. But there was a time when I did find online games cozy. My favorite game of all time Halo 3's online multiplayer was super cozy. Matches rewarded you with 1 experience point for winning and 0 for losing. Leveling up rewarded you with the occasional armor piece, but ultimately it didn't really matter what level you were. You kept playing because you wanted to, for the ridiculous moments with friends, or to learn new maps, or because you found it fun. That coziness came from nothing else hanging over your head. If I was playing Halo 3 custom games, it wasn't at the expense of leveling up or missing out on the Battle Pass. It was purely for fun. And if I didn't want to play Halo 3, I could always play something else. Nothing was psychologically holding me to it. I was playing for intrinsic reasons. Jump to today. I distinctly remember playing Season 1 of Halo Infinite, getting Onyx rank and maxing out the Battle Pass. But once achieving those goals, my motivation to play immediately dropped. It was like someone absorbed the will to play out of me. And the problem? It's not that I didn't enjoy the game as much as it is I felt forced to play when it wasn't my preferred experience, and I burnt out. Blame me for buying the pass, sure, but these systems prey on that fear of missing out function in our brains that advertisers love to take advantage of. Buying a pass is cheap and easy, and the potential reward overwhelms rational thought. The Battle Pass wasn't a random lucky idea that worked. It was the culmination of millions of dollars and psychologists paying attention to player habits and learning just how to hook our little monkey brains. If I don't buy the Battle Pass, the game will constantly remind me of what I'm missing out on by staying with the free version. If I'm gonna play the game anyways, I might as well buy it, right? Halo Infinite actually does a better job than most in this regard, as it allows you to go back to previous battle passes at any time to unlock their rewards. It removes the time-induced pressure of getting through the pass before it expires, but it still preys on FOMO by locking its best cosmetics behind the premium pass. No matter how it's implemented, whatever positive feelings I'm seeking out of an online experience are overtaken by this nonsense. It's a type of cozy ruining manipulation. I say again, the coziest space will not feel cozy if a player enters it with pressing external needs. Don't get me wrong, games can feel uncozy without a battle pass. I just think that's the most egregious modern example. Now, this video isn't meant to be an in-depth critique of the implementation of battle passes, so I'll stop there. As for other examples, I don't typically feel cozy when games feel like they're actively preventing me from playing them, or when they fail to shift things up in any meaningful way after too long. Final Fantasy XVI suffers from this greatly, with a lot of lackluster side quests and the slow pace in which it doles out new abilities. Animal Crossing can be pretty uncozy. I have always struggled with monotony in my day-to-day life, and requiring me to do the same thing every day is a surefire way to get me to not do that thing. Logging in every day is a core part of the Animal Crossing experience, and that requirement is a nightmare for both my executive dysfunction and for my completionist mentality. I understand that no one is forcing me to log in every day, and that there's no additional content to buy, but time-gating items and characters to real-life days of the year stresses me out way more than a game being scary. I can barely keep up with my daily Duolingo, let alone a whole game. I much prefer Stardew Valley's approach with time not tied to the real world. Sea of Stars is a more recent game that almost falls for this. It's a fairly straightforward JRPG-inspired game that I'm really loving now that I'm halfway through, but I was starting to fall off after the first 10 or so hours at first. Weirdly enough, it's a game that should evoke cozy. It's got bright warm colors, welcoming characters, engaging music, but because your moves early on are so limited, combat can very quickly feel samey, to the point where I was almost ready to give up playing. But once I pushed past that, Sea of Stars combat really opened up, and the resulting variety has ironically led to it being more cozy. Probably because I worked towards it, a type of dissonance, if you will. Conversely, Final Fantasy II. I know I said I like being thrown into things, but that game doesn't teach you anything and it's worse off for it. It has such an obtuse leveling system that essentially boils down to cheese the game, and I kinda despise playing it. I won't go into it more here, but I have a whole video about the game if you're curious. But these are just my versions of cozy and uncozy games. The beauty of these examples is that someone else might feel the complete opposite of me, harkening back to Cook's claims on cozy being player dependent. Even if you disagree with me entirely, I invite you to take the time and search for some coziness in the next game you play. You never know what you may find. Thanks for indulging me.